obviously one of the first things I want to talk about is the whole situation with going around with not Bubba Wallace in particular, but the whole situation. Because it's just you guys know. I just want to touch on it. I don't want to go too much into detail. Like I already made a video about the whole problems. This is, I mean, a completely new situation, but same kind of themes. So racism and all that. So I've already made a video like that. If you guys want to check it out, it's on the channel. I think it's titled something about NASCAR's fan base. Bubba Wallace is right in the thumbnail, and so you could guys go check that out. But I mean, there's no. I think everyone knows. They're gonna find the person, ban them for life, and hopefully it never happens again. But I think what it does show, it's a true wake up call. Like when I saw that, funny enough, I was playing Last of Us Part 2, and then I turned it off, and then I went on Twitter and I saw what I saw. If you guys know anything about The Last of Us Part 2, it is a just gruesome world and the worst of humanity. And like I came to a point where I was just like, how is the real world worse than a fictional world, in a sense where the fictional world is meant to be just absolutely horrifically ugly and violent and terrible, and the real world was actually just honestly worse. So that was kind of weird. I wasn't surprised in any way, and that was kind of sad. I was just desensitized to it. I was just like, I expect this. Being someone whose parents are from Iran, a Muslim NASCAR fan. I technically am white, but just how I'm labeled. I've seen this. You expect it. You see the stereotypes. It's nothing new, and sadly, that's something that NASCAR is going to take a very long time to get over. It might never get over it because the fans of the sport who are hiding or sometimes coming out and being just blatantly racist, they're not going to go away. It's deep rooted in the South. It's just the culture of how it is, and sadly it's frustrating, but hopefully we'll evolve from there. So now that let's talk about the race, because that's what I want to talk about, because this was a fantastic race. Thankfully, part of it being that the rain stayed away, but the rain was always in the vicinity, which always caused for a very, very intense race of you have to get to the lead in case it rains. So over the course of 3.5 hours, we had 56 lead changes, 8 cautions, 19 different leaders. I never like using lead changes to describe what a race is like, but when you have 56 lead changes and 188 laps, it goes to show that it was a pretty decent race. And you also had the added, I would say, dimension of a dominance car and or dominant cars. I really like this at plate tracks. I like when a certain group or a certain driver is dominant, just like how Gordon and Junior were back in the day in the mid-2000s. I like it mainly because it brings an element of how do you beat those guys. So the Penske guys were the dominant guys today, and it was a question of how do you beat those guys. Eventually, one ended up winning in Ryan Blaney. Maybe not in the cleanest of ways, but he did end up going to victory lane, and it was a fantastic race. There were wrecks, there were talking points, there was great racing, safe racing too. I think there's a fine line, and how do you make the racing safe, so we don't have what we had at Daytona, but also make it entertaining, don't have a train, don't have single file racing. What you saw today was really good. It was that little mix of, it's 2 wide, then 3 wide, and then when the drivers really want to push. I think that's the biggest thing we saw today, is that the drivers had to push because of the rain. And since they had to push, you saw some great racing. I think we see the normal talent that Ricky Stenhouse has, and this time he didn't waste it. He didn't wreck it. Him and Kyle Busch performed very, very well, raced very well, worked together very well to team up against the Penske guys. Penske guys obviously worked well in Logano, Blaney, Keselowski, and DiBenedetto, and so they did very well. Logano with, a questionable move to say the least. And on the surface, this doesn't look questionable, but when you have a run that big, it is a little bit tough to block. And Keselowski pushing Elliott into Logano, Penske sandwich. Elliott did not want to obliterate Logano's rear end. That sounds absolutely... He did not want to ram the back end with his dick. He didn't want to run through Logano like a truck with the front end of his vehicle, so he checked up, and Keselowski was trying to check up apparently, and someone was pushing Keselowski behind, and ended up wrecking Elliott and ending his day. I don't think Elliott's going to be very, Elliott's a very classic guy. He's not going to talk about it after the race in the interviews. He's just going to want to go home. But he'll know what happened. He'll know what kind of block Logano made. And just the talking point here is, the continuation of Logano and Elliott. This is now 3 races in a row, Bristol, Homestead, and here, where there's been some sort of altercation. So one, Elliott just completely walling Logano, and then Logano holding up Elliott at Homestead, and now this, where even though he goes off the front bumper of Keselowski, it is technically not Keselowski's fault. It is just the driver in front of Elliott who makes that abrasive move, and Keselowski can't see. And even Keselowski did see, he did check up, and then the person behind saw. So it's basically the responsibility of who's blocking to not put the line in a terrible position. It was also not that late in the race, so I don't think it was a move that had to be made. I think Logano knew what he was doing. I think he wanted to put that block on that specific driver. It would help him. I think he knew that. And Elliott just didn't want to just run through him. So Logano took advantage of that. And what I think it goes to show, as a fan, it's really hard to explain this to some of you guys, because some of you guys think I hate Logano, which I just don't. I don't hate anyone. But when you're a fan, I think watching Logano is fun. If there isn't the Logano or the Stenhouse or another aggressive driver, the Hamlins, they have to be aggressive at the plate tracks to win. That's just how you do it. And it makes it fun making those moves. So as a fan, I love Logano's driving style. If I was at Logano, I would be just as aggressive. I would try to not be that aggressive to the point where I could wreck myself, but I would want to be aggressive as a driver. And I think a lot of people can back this up, within the garage area. There are a lot of drivers that don't like Logano because of his driving style. And I think it's not just the driving style. It's when you take Logano out of the race car, he's not very tough. He doesn't talk the tough game. He doesn't want to get in a physical altercation. So you're very aggressive in the car, but then out of the car, you kind of, not as, hard on the sleeve, wearing the hard on the chest, and he's not outgoing that much, and so drivers get a little bit ticked off by that because he's so aggressive in the car and makes these bold moves. Obviously, he's had multiple fights throughout his career with multiple different drivers. Pretty much all of JGR hates him now, which is kind of funny. But what I'm just trying to say is it's understandable to see why drivers, not just Elliott, there are many drivers that just don't like him as a competitor. But it's also understandable to see why fans don't like him. But then again, it's also understandable to see why fans do like him. I like him. I think that, it's a good driving style. I think it's funny. I just, I kind of wish if you drive like that on the track, you have to be prepared to back it up off. And throughout his career, at least from Joey Logano's, when it comes to Harvick, Busch, Stewart, Hamlin, Elliott, Matt Kenseth in Martinsville multiple years ago, he doesn't back it up off the track. He gets pushed around physically, mentally, verbally. He just gets pushed around. So if you can't take it off the track, you gotta be able to take it. You have to be able to take it off the track if you want to dish it out on the track. So the good thing is with Elliott, because Elliott ain't going to do anything. I'm sorry. I don't know what it would take to get Elliott to actually physically altercate with someone. I mean, I don't know what it would take. It would take something, probably turning him head on in the wall for a championship. Maybe that would do it, but I'm not entirely sure. Good news for NASCAR is that storyline just carries right throughout the season. Hopefully. I don't want it to be resolved. I want those two to hate each other. Need rivalries. I appreciate that. And maybe, when this whole virus thing is over with, we get some bah, boom, boom, bah, boom, boom, fisticuffs, bah, bah. Well, seeing those two in a fight probably wouldn't be pretty. Neither one of them know how to fight, probably. The other altercation in the race was between Jimmy and Harvick, and that was also questionable. I think the biggest thing here is who Harvick had to his inside. He had Stenhouse. I think if you had someone else, there'd be a little bit more room. But Stenhouse knows the side draft game, and he knows he's not going to give that room to make it 3 wide. So when Harvick tried going low, he had Stenhouse there. Stenhouse ain't going to give the room, and so he ended up turning Jimmy. I think if Harvick just had a little bit more awareness who he was racing around, you had Jimmy in front of you, but more importantly, you had Stenhouse below you. And that driver is not going to give you the room that maybe someone else who's a little bit more lenient or not as aggressive will give. Let's just say like a William Byron. Maybe William Byron would have not immediately tried side drafting, and that room would have been there to make it 3 wide. But because he was racing Stenhouse, it was kind of, the room's not there. So he goes low, and Jimmy sees that, makes a little move low. but the room wasn't there. The hole wasn't there. It was half a car length hole. And ends up wrecking Jimmy, which sucked because Jimmy. When I look at Harvick, I was trying to see what kind of move is he making, because if you pass Jimmy, you're gonna get side drafted by Jimmy too in the run stalls. If you just push Jimmy ahead of the leader, you can get those two side by side and then get the run yourself. So I think it was a bad move on Harvick. He ended up pissing off Jimmy probably for future races, ended up wrecking Jimmy as well, bringing out the caution, which puts him in a bad spot because he was in a great spot. 3 laps to go. He's in 3rd place. He's in a really good position, so it didn't help him out. It obviously didn't help Jimmy out. So just a questionable move there, and I understand if Jimmy's pissed. I mean, that's a tough one. You're expecting to get the push from 3rd, and you don't get it, and instead he goes for a gap that small. It's kind of like, what are you doing there? And then the end of the race is just the end of the race is perfect, honestly. I have no complaints whatsoever about any part of this race because I felt it was super entertaining, racy. It took bold racing moves, bold decisions by the drivers, a lot of risk, and you got a great finish. And you got that moral dilemma of what do you do on the last lap when you know you're gonna lose. I love seeing drivers in that situation where, okay, someone gets to your outside in the tri-oval. You know you're not going to beat them unless you hit them and do something to slow them down. That's a very hard situation to place yourself in because you either don't touch them and just take the L and not win the race, or you try to hit them and slow them down. And so that's exactly what Blaney had going at the end of this race. A lot of great moves. Eric Jones coming out of absolutely nowhere to get a huge run. Again, he uses the cars in front of him, pushes them, and then makes the move, which I thought Harvick should have done with Jimmy. Eric Jones did it with guys in front of him. Gets Stenhouse out of the way, and then he makes the move himself on Blaney. Goes low, goes high, and I think the move at Talladega through the tri-oval is always the fake low, go high, because there's just a lot of room in the tri-oval. And then the risk comes into play when you go high. When you go low, the driver on top can't necessarily wall you, but he can side draft you to try to slow you down. So then it becomes a side-by-side drag race, basically, when you go through the tri-oval. But when you go high, if you get the side draft strong enough, you're most likely going to win the race. Problem is, you put yourself in a very precarious situation. And so Blaney got put in that situation. Hello, buddy. What's up? My dog's right behind me. Hi, Bubba. So Blaney got put in a very precarious situation where he knows he's going to lose the race, but then the 38 car comes out of nowhere, which is John Hunter Nemechek. Comes out of nowhere. He's the 3rd car on the outside. Had no idea where the heck he came from, but John Hunter Nemechek in the 38 has the ability. Hello, Bubba. He has the ability to win the race. 3rd car on the outside. Blaney has no idea he's there. So what he's actually trying to do is he's trying to force Jones, hit him, wall him, do something to slow him down. But his spotter never let him know about the about the 38 on the outside. And so Blaney ends up hitting Jones, and the hit doesn't wreck him. It's hitting Jones into Nemechek that sends Jones into the wall, and that wrecks him. And so, unfortunate for Blaney. I mean, no doubt, he just turned hard right. I mean, Blaney just turned right. He knew he had to do it in order to. That's the only chance you have to win the race. You gotta turn right. So that's what he does. And he did. They didn't account for the 3rd car up there, and that's what caused the big wreck. And then miraculously, Blaney, able to keep control of the car after the hit, is able to beat Stenhouse to the line and win the race. It's a great finish. Very unfortunate for a few guys, obviously. Eric Almirola's sliding down backwards, and he's finishing 3rd with his rear end coming across the start-finish line. But, for Jones, it sucks. For John Hunter Nemechek, it sucks. But that's just, how it goes sometimes. When you get put in that situation, like back in the day, the runs weren't as great. So you don't necessarily have to wall someone to win. You think of 2007 Daytona 500, if Mark Martin ran Harvick up the wall, does Mark Martin win the race? Probably, but Mark Martin's the cleanest race car driver alive, so he's not going to do it. In today's racing, if you don't hit them, if you get side drafted like that and you don't try to hit them, you're not winning. 100% guarantee you ain't winning the race. So it's a really hard just position to put yourself in as a driver, and I feel for Ryan. You could tell after the race he wasn't that ecstatic about it because he knew what he did, and it sucks. You put yourself in such a bad situation where you either take the loss and be a baby, or you go and try to win the race and piss people off. So it's just like, it's the nature of the racing. And just to wrap everything up, guys, again, I have no complaints, man. Great package, great job by NASCAR. The weather helped a lot making these drivers race. and they did very well. And the package was safe. I think when you saw Jimmy get turned at 195 miles per hour, nothing happened. The car didn't go in the air. Luckily, he didn't get hit either. Same thing with Elliott down the back straightaway. When he got turned, nothing terribly happened. The cars were slowed down a little bit. They were also more stable, which gave the drivers ability to race, push, all that stuff. And it was a really nice package. Would it work at Daytona? Daytona's a little bit smaller, so we're not entirely sure. Less room could cause bigger accidents, so we don't know. But great package. Hopefully it sticks around, and we move on to the doubleheader at Pocono. You got 2 races in 1 weekend, but it's freaking Pocono. So you probably won't see me make a video next week because what's the point? I'm not expecting a great race. It is what it is. It's Pocono, guys. Whatever. I'll see you guys later. Hope you're having a great day. Subscribe if you're new. Sky, stop biting. Let me get him real quick. Subscribe if you're new. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry. Hey, look. Say hello. Hi, baby. Subscribe if you're new. Sky, say hello to everyone. Hello. Subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you're not already. Links are in the description below. And my Instagram's just full of this little guy, so I'm sorry. Can I get a kiss? Please? I raised you. Don't look away from me, Sky. Hey. He's very spoiled, No, little baby. I'll see you guys later. Enjoy quarantine. Take care of yourselves. He really wants down. See you later. Peace out.